What I started is कि हमने एक ऐसा प्लेग्राउंड एक ऐसा बनाया जहाँ पे इस तरह के लोग जो डिसीजन भी करते हैं जिनकी अपनी एक से है विद इकोसिस्टम। तो हम लोग ये चाह रहे थे कि कंप्लीटली इकोसिस्टम बिल्ड हो जहाँ पे every part of business and building the opportunities within Pakistan. हम लोग हमेशा एक ही चीज बात करते हैं कि पाकिस्तान में opportunities बहुत ज़्यादा है, X potential है, Y potential है, और ये हमें ज़रूरत है सब पाकिस्तान में opportunities लाने की, बाहर से लाने की, और उसके लिए हमें यहाँ पे लोकल प्रोड्यूसर एनवायरनमेंट डेवलप करना है। So we are lagging behind many areas जहाँ पे आज भी हम फिनटेक के लिए लड़ रहे हैं, जहाँ पे पेमेंट्स लड़ रहे हैं, जहाँ पे हम बेसिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के पाकिस्तान में लड़ रहे हैं। तो हमें ये ज़रूरत है कि जब हम सब वो डिसीजन मेकर एंड थॉट यूजर इकट्ठे हों और फिर हम हेल्प करें विद द पब्लिक सेक्टर एंड गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर के, हम इस तरह से पाकिस्तान में चेंज मेकर्स की एक प्लेस बना सकते हैं जहाँ पे हम पाकिस्तान से बाहर कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग पे काम कर सकें, अपॉर्चुनिटीज बिल्ड करने में काम कर सकें। दिस वाज द होल आइडिया टू बिल्डिंग दिस CXO forum, and luckily we have more than 255 members, जिसमें से 68% जो है they are पाकिस्तान, 22% जो है they are outside of पाकिस्तान, जिसमें US, UK, UAE and MENA region की बात आता है, India और माशाल्लाह, और I think by the end of December we'll be 500 members by that time, और अब आस्ते आस्ते we are more precise and more focused. So I would like to thank you all of you again कि आप आए और आज अपने different projects successfully बनाया. Thank you so much. So,
thank you, Kaval. May your forum grow from 500 to 5,000 and even more. So, without further ado, I would like to call my friend Nishad, who is also the Chief Product Officer at Convo, to share about with you guys what Convo does, and also to formally welcome you.
Thank you, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for coming, all the panelists, Usman Sahab, Ali, Fatima, and Rahiman. I would not take your much of the time because enjoy this session. What Convo is doing, our slogan is unify your workforce, and I think collectively we should be unifying our workforces for a common goal, which should be digital Pakistan, right? So, not taking much of your time. Enjoy the show. Thank you for coming.
That was fascinating. So, आजकल एक बहुत ज़्यादा जो बातचीत होती है वो ये होती है कि पाकिस्तान का वो मोमेंट कब आएगा। मोमेंट में बड़ी बातें होती हैं, ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव लीडरशिप का मोमेंट, डिजिटल डिस्ट्रप्शन का मोमेंट, एंड ऑल्सो द मोमेंट फॉर कोलैबोरेटिव लीडरशिप, लॉट्स ऑफ स्टफ। बट ज़्यादातर बातों में एटलीस्ट जितनी मेरी नॉलेज है, जितना याद है कि कल तक ऑलमोस्ट देयर। So when we talking about we're almost there, why we're not there yet? Let's hear from Usman Rashid, the Chairman and CEO of Convo, for his keynote on what is it that the leader, the modern leader of today should be looking at. Please.
Thank you, Fasi. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for coming to Convo. कोई 2-2.5 साल पहले this used to be a शादी घर. So they had beautiful ornate carvings and everything, and so we convinced the owner of the building to lift everything up and give us at a core what the building was about, which I think concrete structures are beautiful. The only thing I couldn't convince him to remove was the ceiling. उससे उसने कहा कि मैंने सिर्फ 25 लाख रुपए लगाए तो आप ले लेंगे. On second thought, it was beautiful. You know, just leave it as it is. 25 lakh remove करने के लिए. So, you know, thank you for having me at the program. There it is, right? Thank you so much for having me here. What I wanted to focus today was I've been on a bit of a journey over the last few years, trying to build within Pakistan from normal perspective, a great software company, a great product company, and we've been going through the journey. I've been lucky enough to work with some of the best people in Silicon Valley, so I can do a comparison to what's happening over there. And so I just wanted to share some of my thoughts. It's not amazing potential there, but also what's holding us back. And what do we need to do, especially groups like these who are in leadership position, what is it that they can do to push us forward? Because as Sasi said that हमारा moment आने वाला है, but बड़े अच्छे से आने वाला है, वो आगे भी देते हैं, right? So you know, at the end of the day, when I've been thinking about it, I try to sum it up in simple words, and it really comes down to attitude, right? I mean, companies are built by people. It's not built just by founders, it's the teams underneath them who really build with everything. Or what I ended up with the bottom line statement was that यहाँ पे it seems that there's a feeling of being okay with doing. And the way I would describe it is that we don't aim higher, we don't aim way above our potential. And being okay with feeling okay is not okay, because I'll tell you this, that the spark that comes from some of the team members who are really pushing further, that's the magic between a company doing great and a company doing okay. So, इसके ऊपर so I mean, there's obviously a long-term thing that we have to do as a country, that is a generation change. And but what is it that we can do today in our company, right? I mean, I think first of all it's a recognition of the issue. Obviously it's not a DNA issue. We have amazing Pakistanis the world over doing crazy things, right? I mean, and guys who have nothing and made it. I'll give you an example. Rather name of Raghib, he's my friend. 6th grade में उसने English बोलनी सीख के, लिखनी सीख के, 5th grade में all Urdu. And he built one of the most successful companies in Silicon Valley, right? So there are guys like that. There are guys like Atif, who built the core processor for AMD, which brought on the mobile revolution. I mean, these are not, these are amazing examples, and I can go on dozens and dozens of such guys. But ये जो 0.1-0.2% होते हैं ना, ये किसी तरीके से करके निकल जाते हैं. They don't need a scaffolding, they don't need a system, they are able to get through. But countries are not built by just a handful of people, right? I mean, you need the masses to really step up. And the real ultimate thing is that I think 100% of employees are not going to be the most productive guys. I mean, it's human nature. But आपके जो थोड़े से हैं, उनको at this point, can we get it 2%? Cultivate them, and can you make them 2.5%? Can you make them 2%? Because I'll give you some examples in my company where individual did something and the company was like recognized for it everywhere. We were building, this was during the days of no, we were building an education tablet. And this is 2009, where we went to write on a tablet, do a great job. And we were having this issue QA. So उसको लिखने के लिए you have to write for hours with QA, and people getting tired of writing. How much can you write? And we were thinking of the problem, and one of my engineers, amazing guy, full of tattoos, and like you would say that he's a rock, he's on a rock band. Next morning I come in and some guy told me, oh, one of our videos is trending. I'm like, what? उसने क्या किया कि उसने he took the Lego pieces. He made a rig overnight. You put a pen on it and it moves on a certain pattern and taps everything around, and now it can go on for hours and hours and hours. And it was doing the job which we had a hard time with. There was one guy who just heard about it in a lab and decided to do it, right? I mean, that's the kind of innovation जो कि आपके जो feeling okay, being okay, ये जो लोग हैं वो आप पाते हैं. So that's one of the biggest things that I think as leadership, as leaders, it doesn't matter if in the government or wherever you are, I think that is the number one thing that is holding us back. That हमारा जो threshold of, hey, I think we can do better, is not very reasonable. But it's only going to increase when you have something to point to, when you have examples, right? I mean, I didn't want to speak about it, I wanted to walk the talk, right? So बोलने वाले बहुत हैं हमारे पास. So for me, it was really about how do we make a long-term goal? How do you also fix, begin to incrementally improve the problem? Now, from a long-term perspective, आपने आज का जो बच्चा है, जो कि 5 साल का है, in 20 years, the job that they will be competing for, you cannot even think about it today. Because आज की job है, I don't know how many people they tell me in 1995 thinking about IoT, the devices that talk to each other. Not many people. So the job that the 5-year-old is going to struggle for today on a global scale is going to be so recognized. But there's one common thing, that ability to think and ability to do better is we can teach that. Because if they have that skill set, they can do anything. So the notion about, you are your own competition, you don't have competition outside. अगर आप अपने आप से compete कर रहे, you want to be better the next day, no one can compete with you. It's just simple as that. And I can give you examples of people I know, things that my guys did. One of my favorite business books is Seven Habits by Highly Effective People. I saw it in 91. Or habit number 1, and that had the biggest impact on me. It says be proactive, but that's just anybody can say that that's too simple. But उसमें जो एक trick सिखाया on how to make things tangible, that's incredible. And many of you already know it. I'll take a minute to read it because sometimes forget. उसमें उसने चीज बताया कि आपका एक एरिया, आपका सर्कल ऑफ कंसर्न होता है कि आप किसी चीज के बारे में परेशान हैं, और आपके सर्कल ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस होता है आप उसके बारे में क्या कर सकते हैं, राइट? सर्कल ऑफ कंसर्न आपका बड़ा है और बीच में डॉट में आपका सर्कल ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस है, मीनिंग के स्टार्ट ऑफ द थिंग देयर नथिंग टू डू अबाउट इट. So when I was in college in the US, textbook prices were really expensive. I'm still you buy a book for $200, and at the end of the semester they buy it for $60 and sell it for $150. You used to get so annoyed, but since we couldn't do anything, मेरा सर्कल में डॉट था, no power, nothing you could do about it. 15 साल बाद I had an opportunity to do something about it. And we said, hey, these books remain, why don't we rent them? Now, I'll tell you this, California legislature had passed a law mandating that bookstores on campus have to rent textbooks, and they said, we don't think so. Right? No one did anything about it. हमने इस model को we opened it. Now, we put a lot of technology behind it. If I have to explain to you the story, the moment of brilliance of what my engineers, my customer service people, my QA people, individuals that do, company को आए अपने actions से, you would be like shocked कि भाई how did we survive? So when I look back, I see so many times we have completely fallen on our face, but we didn't because of the people. But today, share is worth almost $11 billion. It's more valuable than Pearson, McGraw-Hill, Cengage, many of these big publishers. It's 50 times more in market cap than any of the bookstore companies, the biggest ones. And in 5 years, हमने अपना circle of influence को हमने किताब रेड करनी शुरू की, लोगों ने कहा ठीक है, you can rent your books, जब तो थोड़ा बड़ा, right? हमने फिर उसको और मार्केटिंग शुरू की, हम गूगल में ऐड डाले, जब तो और बड़ा हो. We put our things on textbook search engines. People are coming to look cheaper prices, and oh, you can rent, जब तो और बड़ा हो. I mean, we didn't do something overnight. It was not one moment of brilliance. I'll tell you that some of the things we did had nothing to do with technology or the business model. It was about understanding what our customers were saying, right? But there was some guy in the company who wanted to think about it, and that was in the US. Students can drop a class in 2 weeks. They don't like it, have to show the professor, whatever it is. उनको ये परेशानी थी कि अगर मैंने किताब रेंट की और आप मुझे गूगल में भेजेंगे तो उस वापस कैसे करेंगे, क्या होगा, there was confusion, and we did a poor job of explaining it. The moment we heard about this, we only put one line of text below the red button. Dropping your class, no problem, returns are free. 1000% growth the next day. Why? Because somebody was like, hey, why is this a problem? Why am I doing it? But this was not about technology, it was about an individual, and we never looked back from that day on. Even though everything we did was exactly the same except for one line of text. But somebody said, it's not okay that we're getting this much traffic because we're giving you such a great deal, $100 book, you're getting for $30. Why is that not a good deal? How is it that people are not in love with this in droves? I mean, in hundreds, thousands of them, right? And overnight, there was small incremental things, but this came from someone not feeling okay with being okay. That is the most fundamental thing. That's the thing I keep teaching in our own company. And look, it looks good, but is it good enough? Is it amazing? I mean, are you really proud? Right? उसको हमें उठाना है. But you know, like in the same theme as in walking the walk, I feel कि हमारी जो young generation है, उनको अगर हमने सोचना नहीं सिखाया, हमने कंप्यूटर रेवोल्यूशन मिस की, हमने इंटरनेट रेवोल्यूशन मिस की, हमने मोबाइल रेवोल्यूशन मिस की, हमने IoT मिस की. The next one, in my opinion, is biotech. The combination of the human body with technology is coming in a big way. अगर आप सोचें कि मैं सोचूंगा और दोबारा पूछ जाए, it's already technology is already happening. So, but वो जॉब 20 साल बाद है, उसके लिए जो आज का बच्चा पढ़ के तैयार नहीं हो रहा, they are not going to be able to get there. So, in our own humble way, we have opened, four STEM schools in Lahore. इसमें the idea is कि हम concept based learning सिखाएंगे, मगर हम उसको 50,000 की बिजनेस सिखाएंगे, हम उसको 8-9 हज़ार सिखाएंगे. The masses can do it. Because the notion is that if the broad population is not stepping forward, हम लोग कहीं जा नहीं सकते. So the thing that I would encourage all the executives here is that please, you have to find those brilliant people, you have to cultivate them, और आपने कोशिश करनी है कि 2.5% 4% पे आप लोग कैसे बढ़ेंगे. Because at least in the US I know amazing people get sick and tired and bored working with ordinary people and they shut down. It happens everywhere in the world. और अगर आप उनको cultivate नहीं करते, they are the spots who take you to the next level. I don't know how much time I've been speaking, but लेकिन इसका I am personally really bullish on what's happening in Pakistan. I was just, we can open our company one day. 2 साल पहले मुझे दुनिया लगा था. And one for them, it took forever. As a foreign national, wanted to put money in Pakistan and go through a lot of pain, but today I can do it overnight, right? So all the ecosystem, everything is here, it's coming, right? But that is not going to be enough if we don't change the way we think and our attitude. However, you don't have the right God. What's the point, right? So for the longest time, I have been revelation you can't do it. I mean, I never buy the argument because this is always a way. But what you really say over here, I mean, I'm encouraging a lot of people from outside of Pakistan to come to Pakistan to open the offices over here, because if Indian Americans can go to India, Chinese Americans, Israeli Americans, Korean Americans, all of those people have spent a lot of time in their country. And I think Pakistan and Americans are not doing enough, and they need to do a lot more. It's not just about coming for a trip and making, speech. It's really about getting their heads dirty. And I'm seeing a lot of it happening, but ultimate talent is there. It's amazing, it's full of it. And I think it's a little bit pushed and just having real pride in every little detail that from a person to anyone, I think that's what we have to cultivate. So thank you so much for your time, and once again, happy to invite you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Usman. There is so much that he talked about, which I believe resonates here a lot on what we see or talk of, including digital transformation. You mentioned a lot about tech, so we have a panel talk on sustainable digital transformation and collaborative leadership, the rise of collaborative. दोनों अलग-अलग topics हैं, दोनों में एक चीज common है, वो मैं बताऊंगा कि क्यों. Meetups जो होते हैं, normally होते हैं, chat coffee थी, लोगों से मिले, photos हो गए, so good, right? But this time it was decided, why not engage in more meaningful conversation? While that is also meaningful, and you will do that, you have all the right to do that. We thought, why not engage some people here who come and share their pearls of wisdom, their stories, and their perspective on how they, as a leader, as a C-level executive, are performing here, and what the challenges they foresee. So I'd like to call the panelists here, if you could all please join Dr. Ali Mehmood, Managing Director for KPI Code. Usman Nasir, Managing Director Punjab Pakistan Software. Abdul Rahim Ahmed, CIO SECB, and Pakistan keep tracking back. Yes. So, are you able to say bye, guys? So, आज इस चैनल में 3 लोग हैं जो पब्लिक सेक्टर से और 1 प्राइवेट सेक्टर से। तो जाहिर बात है कि फिर ज्यादा गुफ्तगू तो सरकार पे होगी, लेकिन फिर भी हम चीजें सरकार के से ज्यादा हम तो लीडरशिप स्टाइल और लीडर्स की the challenges उसमें बात करना चाहते हैं, but since it is mostly a public sector heavy panel, let me bring up the conversation starting from you. So अब्दुल रहीम भाई, आपने recently के जो भी initiatives लिए SCCP, उसकी एक resonance में उस्मान ने अपनी talk में बोली कि एक दिन के अंदर कंपनी खुल जाती है, right? Everything can be done. Read the report that you published for the last month in terms of the registrations that happened, and I was very happy to see that most of the registrations that happened last month in SCCP, the new companies that were incorporated, they were done online and within a day, and most of them were IT companies and from Islamabad. So this means that there is a trend that's happening and it's good. But गुफ्तगू है लफ्ज़ sustainable digital transfer. दफातर के अंदर खुद भी आज भी फाइलें चल रही हैं, दूसरी चीजें हो नहीं रही, and you as a regulator I have to look after certain things at a different level, right? How do you ensure that the companies which are coming into Pakistan, उनके लिए चाहे उनकी वो filings हो, उनकी returns हो, उनकी registration processes हो, that is a sustainable transformation? I know it's all digital, but it's a sustainable one. So first, your comments on why, and then the future.
Thank you, President. I think just to give everyone the holistic perspective, like you mentioned, I think last month, and we see this trend, so the number of companies getting registered in Pakistan, so that's growing, that's increasing significantly. दो तीन वजह हो सकती है, एक वजह ये कि entrepreneurship is increasing in the country. The other thing is a lot of, even today, millions of companies are undocumented, so they're coming in. So we started this journey early last year, and with the, as you know, the government's big focus is on ease of doing business. And so Pakistan ki, if you see the ranking that Usman talked about, so a lot of these factors, this is one of the factors, right? So someone, foreign investor or a foreign company looking to come into Pakistan and expanding or starting operations. So, the ease of doing business ranking is one of the other indicators, but a very important indicator. And so the idea is to make things, simplify things, make it easier for companies to do business in Pakistan. So the most significant jump we got as a result of Pakistan's ranking move, legal really move, was in starting a business, as you mentioned today. And the trend we're seeing is more and more companies are moving towards digitization, even in the corporate sector. And I would say, if I compare the last 6-8 months, I think COVID has been a big push, because there was a long period of time that we closed our physical offices, and business didn't stop. Companies continued to register, they continued to work with us, apply to us for approvals, etc. So I think for us, the idea is to really be the leader in it, and as well as show the industry as well. And you'll be surprised. So we've got if you go on our website, we've got an AI board. Right? And you will see the general public, the citizens really demanding more and more. So their expectations generally in Pakistan is that you will digitize, you will continue to lead the way and continue to improve things.
So I have to ask you another thing here. So you mentioned you have an AI bot, it's a very progressive leadership style, very participative, the one we will touch upon, the collaborative trait. Was it easy to implement in government, and what was the challenge?
So when I joined, I think it's been 17 months exactly. So we did a session, first session in Islamabad.
Yeah.
And so the first thing which came, and we started talking to people in terms of getting feedback. So I think I would say it's a reflective of the organization's top management. the culture of the organization, the people who work in the organization. So when we went and started talking to people, generally, a lot of people said, and they said, can we Pakistan में regulator के साथ बात कर सकते हैं? It's an eye opener. हम feedback दे सकते हैं, आपसे सवाल पूछ सकते हैं. Because people here think you will, you're a financial regulator, you will enforce your rate, etc. But the idea was to, we talk about collaborative leadership, right? So not within the organization, across vertically, horizontally, as well as engaging the citizens and the public as well. And as a result, you will see our engagement not only with the NICs, with different sectors, mutual funds, insurance, the corporate sector, with the industry launching the sandbox, with the industry making all these changes with respect to startups, etc. So I think it's been a big key enabler for us as well. And I think in today's world where social media is very important part of everyone's life, if you don't do that, it's very quick for people to also provide you that feedback. And I think it's an important element to understand people with feedback. And we continue to take that and make changes. On the question of public sector, I personally would say that I underestimated the challenges when I joined the organization.
Don't we all?
So the challenges are enormous, but it is possible as long as we remain persistent. And it's also just that consistent message, working with your colleagues, peers, the industry, trying to tell people why it's the right thing to do, and having that dialogue and engagement. So I think that's helped a lot.
So evangelism is very important, right? And actually going to the masses, actually taking their support, their feedback. So really appreciate that input, which now brings me to you, Usman. You just recently joined, both of you have recently joined the organizations that you're representing here today in your professional capacity. So Pakistan Software Export Board, lots of challenges. So they're like any other institution in the government. So पहला सवाल तो मेरा ये होगा कि I recently actually read about what you shared in Australia, blockchain making way for actually the security trading part, for the commodity trading and everything. So certain challenges on that side as well, but first of all, your opinion, when you joined, and you recently joined, you must have come with some very high ambitions and all. Are those still intact, or you basically reality?
Oh, no, they normally they are intact, they are becoming reality. मेरा छोटा vision है, I'll come to the blockchain part. So I've tried and kept my own career, resurrected it by delving into emerging technology. And I thought there should be some people in the room that जब हम बात कर रहे हैं multiple emerging technologies की और हम उनके confluence की बात कर रहे हैं, I think I thought to myself about 4 years ago, we should be a person in the room who should be able to talk all languages. We should be able to talk blockchain, we should be able to talk 5G, we should be able to talk IoT, and a bit of cloud. I'm not smart enough to understand AI yet. So and then I thought, if we try and train, when I was coming to PSC, if we try and train most of our human resource into emerging tech, as well as what we do normally, but if we try and train most of our human resource into emerging tech, और emerging tech के confluence के ऊपर हम काम करें, regardless हमारी count छोटा होगा, हमारे numbers छोटे होंगे, लेकिन जो value हम table पे bring कर रहे हैं for the rest of the world, as HR, as companies, that will be immense. Nobody will be able to rule us out. Having said this, मैं पाकिस्तान आया जब मैंने आपके यहाँ जब मैंने ब्लॉकचेन पे बात करना शुरू की, शुरू में a lot of people discourage me कहते कि वो ब्लॉकचेन बिटकॉइन तो nearly half. So, but then I went to very few institutions. I went to State Bank. I went to SCB. I was happily surprised. State Bank is working on many parallel domains on blockchain. कुछ चीजें मैं यहाँ बता नहीं सकता, लेकिन 8 या 9 थ्रेड्स पे ब्लॉकचेन के ऊपर, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन के ऊपर, सेटलमेंट के ऊपर, लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट के ऊपर, there has been active work going on in State Bank. I heard मैं सोर्स नहीं बताऊंगा पर मुझे किसी ने बताया है SCCP में भी कुछ हो रहा है तो it can't come on some
So, में मुझे अच्छा लग रहा है कि ये बातें सुन के कि ये सब कुछ पाकिस्तान में हो रहा है और अभी थोड़ी देर पहले मैं आपसे जिक्र कर रहा था कि और दोस्त हैं and so one of the jobs of a leader is that he has a vision but then he's very focused on it. We saw Usman also saying that you know you're not in it for the short haul, you're in it for the long run, right? It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So with the right people and the right job, things do happen. Which brings me to you, Ali. You recently took the reins, I believe, just a few days back of the KP IT board. KP is a very progressive province, but also lots of other challenges, culture-wise, language-wise, academia, industry collaborations, but huge opportunity. So what do you see as the first few bigger wins for you that you have identified? And despite the challenges that you have.
Okay, thank you. It's just been 10 days since I took charge, so I've been catching up on a lot of things. And you're right, that a lot of things have been happening in KP, and my predecessor has done a lot of things in the IT board over the last 4 years. So there is a lot to do, especially in, you mentioned, the topic of this panel discussion is also sustainable digital transformation and collaborative leadership. So regarding digital transformation, the two main areas where I want to focus on is utility governance and utility economy. A lot of things have happened already, and I want to build on that. So one major challenge that I would like to focus, so one drawback of working for the government is saying about because I'm going to touch upon a few basic things. सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन में चाहे कोई कंपनी हो या गवर्नमेंट का वो चैलेंज और भी ज़्यादा हो जाता है बिकॉज if I'm leading the KPIT board, so मेरा mandate is actually for the whole province. So I can do interventions in a lot of areas. लेकिन जो सबसे बड़ा challenge है that is change management. जो mindset है people, that is the biggest challenge. और वो time के साथ it's going to take time, but with the right kind of interventions, I hope that things are going to change, and a lot of things have changed actually. So what I've noticed is that government basically many stakeholders के साथ meeting हुई है. So we have a lot of information systems. So हर एक department जो है government का और उसके attached formations हैं, they've made their own individual efforts, but in silos, right? So integration is a big challenge. So we have more than 200 information systems which are not talking to data flows, standard format with data flows, not having a data strategy, not taking decisions based on data, data-driven governance. ये सारी ऐसी चीजें हैं जो हम कर सकते हैं. It requires a big effort, but hopefully we'll get there with time. और digital economy में भी a lot of things have been happening. सबसे एक major चीज जो है that is skills. देखें KP में सबसे if you want somebody to be digitally skilled, सबसे पहले उसकी digital literacy होनी चाहिए. अगर digital literacy, अगर कोई digital literate कब होगा जब उसकी basic literacy होगी. Basic literacy level जो है उसके ऊपर भी काम हो रहा है. Education department is doing a lot in that. और मेरे उनके साथ meeting भी कुछ हुई है, so we also want to do something about that and transform the education sector into whether it's higher education or elementary and secondary education. और एक program जो अभी चल रहा है, we're going to scale it up, which I'm really proud of, is the early age program initiative that was taken about 3 years ago. और उसमें हम government schools में we are teaching the curriculum of MIT Scratch program and Code.org curriculum that we customize that, and we started it from 60 schools, government schools. And now we have scaled it up to 600 schools. They can number of schools are about 34,000. So scaling it up to that level is going to require a lot of resources. So there are so many things that I can talk about as we progress through this discussion.
Thank you, Ali. I wish you good luck for all those great initiatives. Which brings me now to you, Fatma. You're not from the government, so you can, I believe, express more openly if you desire.
Absolutely.
And so, for those who don't know, Fatma was part of the core key team, the founding team of Careem, and brought Careem into Pakistan, many other places as well. And now she's doing the same, and rather has already achieved for Keep Trucking.
he is also, it's also very proud moment for us that a woman, a Pakistani woman, is leading such a large team of a unicorn co-founded by Pakistani viewers. So lots of those check marks that Usman you earlier spoke of coming from this. Digital transformation or this sustainability. What is the core element that would keep any digital transformation sustainable? Public sector के examples बहुत सारी हैं, लेकिन उनके challenges भी बहुत, इतनी जल्दी overnight change नहीं आता. Private sector के पास काफी हद तक ये मसल है कि वो overnight या बहुत जल्द चीजों को transform कर सके. और हमने ये देखा कि COVID accelerated digitalization for us. लोग आजकल पूछते हैं कि who's behind the digitalization, your CIO, your CDO, or COVID, right? So many people are attributing it to that fact that this has happened. Primarily the private sector or the consumers also shifting. Why? So not why. What is it that would make it sustainable for the corporates, for the private sector?
A really loaded question. I also, just before I answer that question, I must say that I moved to Pakistan last year for the first time in 17 years. And I moved here because I thought the talent was great. And sitting on this panel, I don't feel worthy enough to do what you guys are talking about. It makes me feel like I made the right decision. And I hope like whatever you're talking about, I can find. So thank you very much for doing what you guys do. This is remarkable. My eyes have been opened. But apart from that, I think in the corporate sector, there's a few things that are must-haves for digital transformation to be sustainable. But before we talk about sustainable digital transformation, I think we need to discuss, and I was talking to you about this, about what digital transformation is. And I think a lot of people think that आपने app बना दिया है और आपने उसको company को ये करके तो ये digital transformation, and that actually is not digital transformation. For me, digital transformation takes into a lot of things. One of the things I talked about was change management. You can make digital, but your customers, are they going to adopt that? So one sustainability is your country ready for sustainable development? And yes, you can talk about government, you can talk about your company. But if my mother still wants to pay cash when she's ordering something online as well, is it really digital transformation? Or are we building that trust? But taking a step back, I think there's 4 things that I look at that are very important for digital transformation to be sustainable. 1, buy-in from the customers. That's number 1, before you do it. Number 2, buy-in from your own employees. So a lot of the time, digital transformation happens as you progress, or you start off as an MVP and then you transform, and you have to take steps, which means automating a lot of stuff. The third thing is obviously the country that you're in and the kind of people that are supporting your digital transformation and making it easy. And the fourth and the most important thing is somebody who thinks the core of digital transformation lies in processes. I think what we do is we make a company, a tech company, then we put 1,000 people on it, and they're doing manual work in the background to make sure that it's a digital company. That's not a digital company. You need to look at all your processes and like think of how can we automate them, and you should be doing it continuously. So 4 things: customers, employees, the government, and most importantly, and you ask the question, who brings in digital transformation? It's not the CEO, it's not the CIO, it's not COVID, I think it's the COO. Yeah, when you're looking for people, and you're trying to build a team, please look for a COO. And I'm always available, not to lead, that was a joke. But I think the CEO is the most important person in any organization. When I was young, they asked me, what do you want to be? I said COO. Because I think that the operation is what defines what the company direction the company is going to go in. And this is my personal opinion, no offense to any CEO sitting here. And then they automate the processes, and that makes it sustainable. And on the side, always have an R&D team, because if you're not thinking, something said here, that you need to be thinking, you need to be thinking forward. That's what your R&D team does. So you can make a product that will be really good, but if you're not doing those 2 weekly sprints that most engineers and product team do, kudos to them, and they're not doing R&D, you're not going to be sustainable. That's just the word from the private sector, yeah.
Thank you, Falguni. So that was a very nice perspective into things, especially from the sustainability side. अब मैं सिर्फ एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन चाहूँगा, छोटा आंसर मिल जाए, and we move on to the collaborative leadership side. You mentioned, both of you, about change. Change is always hard in the beginning, messy in the middle, glorious at the end, but it's a cycle. It has to repeat itself, which means it would be there all the time. And you mentioned the role of R&D and others. So I first ask this: change is always very difficult. अभी एक गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर को चेंज करते हुए पूरे पाकिस्तान के कॉर्पोरेट्स को और ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को चेंज कर देता है रेगुलेटेड, चाहे उसमें कंप्लायंस हो फॉर फाइलिंग एवरीथिंग ऑनलाइन, every document being online, no need to go to any notary public for all those things, and money flowing in from the valley or any other side with least amount of paperwork involved. All this requires a lot of change of humans' mindset, right? Not just the processes. What would be those two main areas that you believe are crucial for such level of change management? मैं two इसलिए कह रहा हूँ, मैं सबसे opinion लेना चाहूँ।
I think one, I would say it has to be driven from the top, very important. I would say the other is there has to be a mechanism for acknowledging and recognizing people who drive profit.
So very, very nice. So people who drive it and has to be driven from the top, so acknowledging their contribution as well, who are at the forefront and in the trenches. आप क्या कहेंगे?
I think I completely agree. एक चीज और जो मैं ऐड करना चाहूँगा, वो that would be how the customers are demanding it. So listening to them and then enabling the people who are driving it. ये दो चीजें important हैं. छोटा सा मैं एक एग्जांपल आपको दे देता हूँ. हमारे पाकिस्तान सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सपोर्ट बोर्ड, not that many people know it about it. जो हम कंपनीज जो पाकिस्तान से सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सपोर्ट करती हैं, हम उनको पेपर वर्क में कुछ हेल्प कर देते हैं, कुछ फैसिलिटेशन दे देते हैं, गवर्नमेंट की कुछ पॉलिसी के लिए आसानी बता देते हैं. हमारे यहाँ डिपार्टमेंट है, और जो हमारे वेबसाइट पे आप जाएं और आप अपने आप को कंपनी को रजिस्टर करें एज ए सॉफ्टवेयर एक्सपोर्टर, तो वो एक ऐसा लंबा प्रोसेस है कि 2 मरतबा मैंने करने की कोशिश की तो मैंने छूट. और फिर मैंने अपनी वो टीम जो लोगों से ये सारा काम करवाती है, जो प्राइवेट कंपनीज को बताती है कि उन्होंने कैसे इसको अपलोड करना है, क्या करना है, मैंने एक दफ़ा उनको कहा कि ये 50 ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स जो तुम सारे मांगते हो डॉक्यूमेंट्स मैं तुम्हें जमा करके देती हूँ, इनको अपलोड करो, पूरा प्रोसेस करो, अपनी कंपनी रजिस्टर करो. 45 मिनट लेटर आई लुक्ड इनटू द रूम अगेन, देयर वाज स्टिल, और उसके बाद वो आए मेरे सर बड़ा मुश्किल काम है, इसको फाइनली इसमें से जो अननीडेड अनवांटेड स्टेप्स है उसको कम करो, लेट्स ट्राई एंड मेक द 15 मिनट्स प्रोसेस. तो ये छोटी छोटी चीजें अगर आप लोगों को इनेबल कर दें और उनको खुद यू मेक देम वॉक थ्रू दोस शूज ऑफ योर कस्टमर्स, ताकि उनको पता चले कि वो प्रोसेस बाहर से कैसा लगता है, जो प्रोसेस को हम बड़े प्रॉपर्ली अंदाज से.
That's very nice. अली, आप ये दो मेन चीजें जो समझते हैं,
एक तो I completely agree, especially government में it cannot happen on this top down approach. इसके बगैर तो possible है. दूसरी चीज ये है कि it should be participative and inclusive the whole process.
Right.
You have to clearly communicate the agenda of change. और लोगों को आपको बताना पड़ेगा कि आप किस लिए कर रहे हैं. They should know why this is happening. You have to take them out of their comfort zone, but they realize that it's in their benefit in the long run. Obviously, the resistance to change may be, a bit less. So, ये चीजें हैं. Also, there should be a mechanism of change management कि उसको आप measure कर सकें और monitor कर सकें. So there are different frameworks available, DICE framework, and there are many other frameworks through which you can monitor the progress किस तरह over a period of time, whether you are making progress or not. So, you could choose.
So, communicate, empower, and lead by example are the common elements there that you can find. What would you like to add to it? You've been part of various change management exercises.
So I think I agree with all of them, and mine would have just been communicate. And one of the things that I want to pick up was the top reason for me was, or the top thing you need to do is explain the why behind the change.
Yeah, very important.
If you can do that, but I would take it a step further and say what's worked for me in the past is once you've explained the why, be open to listen to the concerns, be open to listen to the feedback, and sit with them as long as needed. There was a session that we did at Kareem once, which lasted 8 hours, non-stop, and thus Sheikha had the patience to sit through it, where we were explaining a change and people had questions, and we kept answering the questions. Because if you can't convince them, and if you can't answer their concerns, और बाद में end में जाकर ये बात कि my job होगा. So have a reason as to if you're automating, if you're changing, you've thought this out and we've thought this out. So I think listen to their concerns and address their concerns as you communicate. and there is nothing else for me. Yes, lead from the top is important, but for me, that is the most important thing. And as somebody who's automated and changed a lot of processes, that's what I stick to. And as somebody who's part of the change, I would wish that they'd explain the why a lot more. Anything in the government sector, it might not happen, but in the corporate sector as well, there's a lot of people that refuse to do it. So I'd encourage everyone to do it.
Excellent. It brings me to the last part of the conversation, the rise of collaborative leadership. इसकी बहुत सारी दुनिया में बात हो रही है, दिखाती जा रहा है. Not competition, but collaboration is the key, right? And